Well, Monday was a busy day for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks as the Gamecocks landed not one, not two, but three different commitments out of the transfer portal. And joining me now is Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. Wes, let's go ahead and dive into them. The first guy that committed was Devonni Reed out of Central Michigan. He was a pretty big player there. Talk to me about him and just your thoughts on the boost that he could give the Gamecock secondary, especially with the departure of Jalen Foster.
Yeah, Chandler, I think you nailed it, man. The loss of Jalen Foster there really opened up, I think, a need for South Carolina at the safety position. They were looking for somebody who could come in and I think play right away and provide a boost there. And this is a kid that's played 4 full years of college football, highly productive. Has almost 300 tackles in his college career, 3 interceptions, has played pretty much from the second he got on campus up there. And got a lot of offers once he hit the portal. Texas offered the kid, Louisville offered him, and I think just provides a needed addition of that experience. A hard-hitting kid, and if you look at that position, you look at the secondary for South Carolina. They signed a bunch of freshmen. It's a big class for them, but you don't want to really force those guys into action. So I think you look at the return of R.J. Roderick at safety. You look at the return of several other guys at cornerback. Darius Rush, Marcellus Dial, Cam Smith. They really just needed that one guy who could come in and help kind of boost the position at safety. And, I think Devonni Reed could certainly be that for them.
Sure, I think so too. 249 career tackles for Devonni. So, like you said, definitely a hard-hitting guy. Now, let's go to the offensive side of things. The next guy to commit was Antoine Wells Jr. out of James Madison. Now, he's a guy who did big things for James Madison last year. Led the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, broke program records in all three of those categories as well. What is he going to bring to the receivers room, especially with Josh Vann and Dakereon Joyner coming back?
Yeah, he's a stat stuffer, man. You look in all those categories you mentioned, he's in the top 3 in all of FCS football. Obviously, James Madison is sort of an FCS powerhouse, I would say. They're always one of the top teams at that level. And he was arguably their best player. I think this is someone who comes right in, competes for a starting position for South Carolina. I kind of pieced together some different highlights that are out there of him. And he's a very complete receiver. He's 6'1", so he's got some height to him, listed at 204 pounds, so he's not a small guy by any means. They move him around a pretty good bit. He plays a little bit in the slot, but mostly plays that sort of outside wide receiver position, but adds speed, adds yards after the catch, a competitive kid. And, you talk about competitive edge and just a guy who wants to be the man, who wants the football on third downs. This is him. And he comes in 3 years of eligibility left. So sometimes with transfers, like in the case of Reid and then Christian Beal-Smith, who we're going to talk about in a second, I'm sure you're talking about 1 year of eligibility. With Wells, it's more about, he's got some experience already. He's a little bit older guy, but he does have a number of years available left. So technically 3 years left and an opportunity for him to come in and probably make an immediate impact for South Carolina's offense.
Facts, making an immediate impact, and like you said, 3 years of eligibility left, so he could definitely make an impact down the line as well. Certainly a great guy for maybe Spencer Rattler to throw the ball to. Now let's talk about, like you mentioned him, Christian Beal-Smith out of Wake Forest. 1,800 career rushing yards. I watched the film on him. He looked to be pretty darn good. What are your initial thoughts of him, and what do you think he can bring to a running back room that saw the departure of not only Kevin Harris, but also Zaquandre White?
Yeah, I think this is a tough-nosed workhorse type, very strong, very good balance. Probably the guy that comes in, obviously, you have Marshawn Lloyd coming back, you have Juju McDowell coming back, but those guys aren't the biggest backs in the world. You lose Kevin Harris, as you said, Z White, both are guys who can hold up and carry the ball maybe 20 times. I think Beal-Smith comes in and provides that presence. Another veteran guy. So you kind of, if you're South Carolina, you're trying to evaluate these players, you know what you're going to get because you have a full 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of actual college film watching them play. So I think it's another immediate impact. If you go into the portal, that's what you're looking for. And, I think, man, if you kind of look at all these guys, they directly replace players at positions where you saw South Carolina lose a couple of guys at running back, and then you replace him with a guy like Christian Beal-Smith. You saw Jalen Foster moves on at safety, you replace him directly with, Devonni Reed. So if you look at all these moves, they just make a lot of sense. And the interesting thing about this kid and Beal-Smith is he was splitting time with a guy named Kenneth Walker 2 seasons ago. He transfers to Michigan State and ends up winning the Doak Walker Award for the best running back in all of college football. So he was actually the leading rusher for Wake Forest the last 2 seasons, despite splitting time with players like that. So he didn't get to run the football quite as much at Wake Forest as far as being like the top back. And I think he's probably looking for a place where he can be a little bit more of the guy. And, we'll certainly get the opportunity to prove he should be that, even though there's going to be some competition in this running back room as well.
For sure, a whole lot of competition. Now, Wes, is Shane Beamer done? I don't think the man's done yet. He's been on a roll lately, especially in the transfer portal. So who, like off the top of your head, who's somebody else? Maybe it's a couple of guys that you think Shane Beamer could go after here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, not done yet at all, man. The guy that comes to mind right now would be Kobe Hudson, the former Auburn wide receiver. South Carolina is targeting him heavily right now. So if you want to talk in general terms, maybe another wide receiver. They're actually after a linebacker named West Weeks from Virginia. He's a guy to keep an eye on. And then I think there's also a best available mindset to this as well. If a player out there is just too good to turn down, they're not going to turn him down. So not done by any means. Maybe they take another running back as well. Again, as you said, they lost 2 backs. So maybe they look to replace those guys with 2 backs in this class. So plenty to still come as far as Shane Beamer's recruiting of the transfer portal.